This is Commander Shepard. You're listening to the Why is Ramirez Securing Burger Town podcast, and this is my favorite podcast on the Citadel. I should go.
And thank you, Mark Hale, for that intro.
Hi, Iona. How are you?
I'm well. I had my booster today. I have a sore arm, but my experiences as a teenager have prepared me for this. Ha. Ha.
Ha.
No, I'm okay. Bit starry-eyed, but I always am. How are you, man?
I feel like death because I've played Project Zomboid again.
That is always a bad idea. I have spent today looking at a Hearts of Iron 4 AI only because I am an asshole and do not actually play Hearts of Iron.
You are literally Drew Durnilkin.
Yes, I am Drew. My Sona is a Durnil Sona. It's not even a lie. I am very good at typing the word observe.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fuck
God
you,
damn it,
fuck
mate.
you, Iona.
It's literally the name of our podcast. Come on, right.
You brought up...
Hello, everyone. Hi there. My name is Iona, and welcome to Why is Ramirez Securing Burger Town, featuring me, Iona, she, her, and...
May, she, they. Fuck.
Yes. So, after the end of our first episode, 0.2 seconds after we finished recording, a hand grenade went off and took out 50% of us. So I'm afraid there is no lemming and no 187th sane this week. Unless sane magically appears, but let's be real, he's probably not going to do that. We did tell him he's not on this, right? We definitely did that.
I heavily implied it.
Don't worry, next one we'll have more people on it. We figured it was the first episode, we could get away with it.
Also, this is the second time recording it.
Well,
We don't talk about Bad Company 2.
I think we basically said that if we didn't fucking get it right this time, we weren't going to do it, at least not in this form. So, yeah.
Anyway, what are we talking about this week, Iona?
Well, this week, we thought we'd start with the most game that is a war game ever, with the game Medal of Honor,
not
brackets
that one.
2010.
Medal of Honor,
yes,
no, not that
one. Yes, no, not that one, because... This is a game like Tomb Raider and I think Doom and a bunch of other series where
Rocky.
They just do the fucking title again. No explanation.
They didn't even do the title, call on other word.
Yeah, they could have literally done, Revolutions, or what was the in word in 2010? There was, fucking...
Revengeance?
No,
Rising?
I guess Rising. Those are both Metal Gear, funnily enough. No, there's another word I'm trying to think of that was, really common then. I can't think of it. But yeah, it's Medal of Honor 2010. A game we have differing experiences with. So I watched you, May, about 2 weeks ago now, play this game. And you played it sort of at the time, concurrently when it came out. My experience with this game, I had no exposure to it, really. I knew it existed. It's, to me, its most notable aspect. It's the first time I remember someone who was not a gamer trademark, when I was 13 when it came out, who would talk about video games and be like, this is a thing, and asking me about it because it had controversies, which we'll get into. But that's my chief, really only memory of this game as a cultural object, being asked by other people who weren't into games, yo, what's this about?
We'll get to that.
Yes, we will.
So, 2010. I don't recall exactly how I came across playing it at the time. I assume I was just given it, or somebody else had it. But I did, in fact, play the single-player campaign, mostly, and I played the multiplayer because, at the time, I did know somebody who had Battlefield 3, but this was in the age of the online pass. Remember those, Iona?
Yes, I do. Did you do the scummy thing that I did back then?
But do confess your sins.
So you had the online pass, and basically if you bought the game new, it didn't mean anything. All it meant was that you open your case, you got your instruction manual, which sadly no one really fucking reads anymore, and your pass. And the pass is a little fucking code thing, and then when you bring up the game, it'll ask you for your passcode. You put it in, boom, it's done. It's fucking dumb. It's just a way to get more money out of you because then you got to pay for it. But that's a whole other thing. I vividly remember, I think I had Battlefield 3, then I got rid of it, being in my local CEX store and just having the thing open and telling my friend, dude, fucking take a picture of that, and then we'll go home and we'll get you your code. It was for him, I remember now, to get him online. And basically, you could just sort of crib the code either by memorizing it if you're insane, or you take a picture of it or something. Then you close the case, you don't buy the game, you leave the store, you go home with your copy that you already have, and you're online.
Absolute motherfucker.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Somehow rat-fucking Battlefield 3. More than it already is.
In fairness, worth it for that game, at least at the time. This was for the PS3 version, to clarify.
You're already playing PS3. You gotta punish someone even harder?
Yes. I enjoy punishing other people for their life decision.
Medal of Honor.
Medal of Honor. We should probably talk about Medal of Honor.
We should talk about honor.
Yes. And medals. You ever just think about how it's like named after the Medal of Honor? Like I've never even thought of that until like right now.
Yes, Iona.
No, like it's obvious, but like I've never actually thought about it. Like, oh yeah, that's just a thing that they did. If they did that now, like it was a new series, there wasn't a series called Medal of Honor, and then they tried to do it now. I don't know. It feels like it wouldn't go well. No. I'm not American, so I don't have.
Well, from what research I've done, there was some pushback at the time for Medal of Honor being made. Regards to, historical accuracy and respect. But they were actually able to convince people who had been in the war TM, which despite there being many wars since, we will refer to World War II as the war TM.
It's funny because in America, that's not as common as in the UK, where you just refer to it as the war TM.
I've been unfortunately poisoned and British pilled, so...
Yes. But no, like in the UK, if you say the war, everyone knows it's World War II, because we had bombs dropped on us.
And you never got over it.
No, we still haven't. Honestly, British psychosis these days is damn. It's a shame the war ended. Huh?
And now you're helping us do it to brown people.
Of course. Well, I mean that's just a fine British tradition, though.
Britain has become so corrupt they can't even do their own war crimes. They have to outsource it to America.
If you want some example of just how deep this goes, listener, look up the when they were evacuating Kabul. British forces were, I think, the only forces besides Americans who were there, beyond just one battalion or whatever, actually doing stuff. It's not like we're doing a lot, but we were there on the ground, and there's some stories. A lot of Americans and British guys arguing with each other, and apparently guns pointed at one point. I have not researched this.
Shout out to the one McDonald's in Kabul. We miss you, baby.
Yes. We brought freedom there, and one day freedom shall return. Did you hear about an Irish bar that was based in Kabul? Irish-themed bar?
Oh, do tell.
So there's an Irish-themed bar in Kabul. I can't remember if it's an Irish guy who runs it, or he died and it's people he worked with who run it now. But obviously, pretty sure it's an Irish guy who owns it. And he lives in Afghanistan. He speaks, can't remember the language of Afghanistan, I'm sorry.
Pashtun? There is no one language of Afghanistan, but I believe
that is true. Yes,
Pashtun is one of the more prevalent.
I think he speaks the common parlance, and of course he speaks English as well. And he ran it. And when the Taliban came in, apparently they saw it, and I think from their point of view, to piss off the Brits, piss off us, they were like, right, tell you what, you can keep running the Irish bar, won't change anything, but you can't serve alcohol anymore. And that man did the wise decision and said, okay. So that bar is still there, apparently. You can still go to it. You just can't drink. Fun.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair enough, yeah. For more clarification, I've basically never played a Medal of Honor game. I played the Pacific one, the opening mission that was Pearl Harbor. And that is it. I just know it exists. I know a bit about how...
I played one level of either Rising Sun or the other Pacific one on the Xbox. And
I think Rising Sun was the one I played as well, yeah. And I know that a lot of the early Call of Duty developer dudes were originally from Medal of Honor, which makes sense, honestly. Because what is Call of Duty but a better done Medal of Honor, when you get right down to it. But
it's actually very funny, because Medal of Honor was originally developed by DreamWorks Interactive. The Call of Duty one was Allied Assault, which was not developed by DreamWorks Interactive, but by 2015.
Yeah, the company was called 2015, yes. It makes researching this somewhat confusing.
2015's Medal of Honor was Allied Assault, which was then become Call of Duty. And unlike the actual, Medal of Honor games beforehand, this one came out on the personal computer. So this is actually telling of a vague problem Medal of Honor had, and it's that it was always sort of behind its own times in a way after a certain point.
It's kind of, the effect to me is very much one of, they looked around the gaming market in the late 90s, let's say 1997. They look around and they're like, there's not really been a definitive World War II shooter that tries to do everything quote unquote right for 1997. So it's not realistic, it doesn't honor the veterans. Again, for 1997. Like, if you look back now, it looks quite, in my opinion, terrible. But like for the time, and they go, right, we need to rectify this wrong. We need to like make a thing in this vein that honors the World War II veterans that like they like. We'll get like movie maker dude Spielberg in on it. It'll be good. It'll be official. It will be capital N nice, right? They do this, and then I don't want to say rest on their laurels, but it is kind of like, having done that, all they could contribute was a more refined, maybe more varied version of that. It seems like a lot of their World War II shooters just kind of were very America focused, whereas Call of Duty, by contrast, they always did have Americans, but they made a point of like going all over, at least in Europe.
I obviously have not played all of them, but I can say that's somewhat accurate, because I know a lot of them cover Normandy and the like, or like special ops things where you probably still play as an American in probably the OSS. And while I'd have to assume there are associates with like the British MI, whatever the fuck it was it MI5?
OSS, and I can't remember, but it's like SOE, that's it, SOE, Special Operations Executive, yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of Americans.
Because, like, when you talk to people about their favorite aspects of Call of Duty campaigns pre, let's say, 3, it's often stuff like the Soviet campaigns, or like the one you played, or Call of Duty 3, which is a not a perfect game,
is
but
a
like
weird one because it's
a weird one
only.
because
it was the first Treyarch game, right?
I believe so. Yeah, it is. I think so. Treyarch ported 2 to the consoles with Big Red 1. I know they did that first, and then 3 was like their first.
Much as it's one of those quote unquote ports where it's basically its own game, you know.
I think they had to. So I think there were some missions that were basically verbatim, but like 2/3 of it is just its own game, kind of Final Fronts before they did Final Fronts.
Yeah.
I think Call of Duty 3 is a good example of just like, there's Americans in there, but like they have Canadians, they have Polish, you play as the Maquis, and SOE again. Like they try to keep it varied because they, I think, rightly suspected that World War II as a genre is kind of limited. Don't want to do the Pacific Front. They did that eventually, but yeah, they try to like jump around a fair bit, keep it fresh. They obviously go to the Soviet front a lot. I think there's some stuff in North Africa. Stuff like that.
I would even argue they don't do the Soviet front a lot per se, because with a lot of Soviet World War II in video games, it's very much the whole Stalingrad sort of aesthetic. Oh, everything is shit.
Which itself is enemy at the gates.
The starting poison of World War II in video games for the Soviet front. Call of Duty 1 just doing enemy at the gates.
And then they did it again in World of War, yeah.
Anyway,
World
War II, gay and dead.
So yes, Medal of Honor, very America-centric, even as like World War II genre games go. That's, I think, a fair statement. This will be relevant to 2010. Which, by the way, just going forward, we're going to refer to the game as 2010 because it's just way easier than saying, I think, Medal of Honor. I think that's fair.
Alternately, we could call it Operation Anaconda Don't, because this game is based off of the Operation Anaconda from 2002, in the early stages of the war in Afghanistan. Neither of us were conscious human beings yet during the 9/11s.
I mean, I kind of was. I was like 7, but essentially
you're old.
So, this obviously, you've done the research on this one. This is essentially a May episode. What can you tell us about Operation Anaconda and stuff like that? Well, just as a quick sort of primer, this is basically the first steps the coalition forces take into Afghanistan, right? And this is sort of what 2010 covers?
Roughly speaking, Operation Anaconda took place in like a few weeks in March 2002, 6 months after 9/11. So there's an entirely significant chance that they're definitely still cleaning up debris, I'm sure, and they may still be finding bodies as we
I remember seeing that in your notes.
Crimes against humanity in the Middle East.
Yeah, well, like something that, and this is just from Wikipedia, but I have no reason to like not believe it, is that until I think 9 months after 9/11, the air quality, it wasn't until 9 months, after 9/11 happened, that the air quality of downtown Manhattan became breathably safe, which...
Oh, they turned it into Los Angeles.
Yeah, but it puts it in perspective, right? How huge an event it was. And not just, obviously politically and so on, but you don't need us to tell you, but just like as a physical event. So like while that's happening, we're busy sending guys into fucking Afghanistan.
This will be the last mention of 9/11 for the podcast, but do believe we will recreate Seth MacFarlane's 9/11 obsession at later points, I'm sure.
Okay, I got beef on that one because I think it's fair for him to be obsessed.
Fair
it
enough,
did very
yes.
nearly kill him.
He was almost 9/11. It's like when Rockefeller almost went on that train crash. Right, let's introduce the main cast, such as it is, of Medal of Honor 2010. Medal of Honor is very much a game about Tier 1 operators. Now, Iona, do you know what the fuck that means? Because I didn't know what the fuck that means.
Tier 1 operators are like... I'm thinking they're like the Delta guys, the Navy SEALs, right? These are the sort of people.
That's about my understanding of it. They're the hashtag special forces.
Yeah. And like essentially, they are the elite of the elite, right? Like, you know, insofar as elite forces are a thing and do stuff. Tier 1's like, is it kind of a catch-all for them? Or is it a specific, like...
If this was Halo, they'd be going wart. Medal of Honor characters... Guess how many characters there are total in Medal of Honor 2010? Named characters.
I was going to say named characters. Isn't it like 7 or 8?
That's a little low, but yes, of the 3 playable sections. Oh, also there's the helicopter. There are about 12? Yeah.
And
okay. Of the 12, 4 of them appear in a total of 2 missions. You start off as Advanced Forward Operators. You start off as AFO Neptune, Rabbit, a voiceless protagonist.
In this timeline, of course, Eminem did not become a rapper and instead joined the military.
Damn.
Watch 8 Mile.
There's also Mother, who is the leader. Voodoo, who is, let's say, the blood psychopath.
Voodoo's the...
He's the guy who makes the joke about killing the goat herder. Or not even the joke. He's the guy who says he'd kill the goat herder for blocking them in the road. He's the one with the beard. Preacher, who I must mention, is the protagonist of the second game.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I don't know what he looks like, which is fun. As for the other one, the Wolf Pack, you have Panther, Dusty, Vegas, and the player character, also unvoiced, Deuce. Deuce Bigelow.
I want to point out, for these episodes, I've made it a habit of looking at the TV tropes and subreddits, if they exist, obviously, of the games we cover. And on the TV tropes characters page for this game, it points out that Dusty is like Medal of Honor's counterpart to Captain John Price. Now,
that's fucking sad.
Yeah, now say what you want about Call of Duty, the storytelling, but like, for fuck's sake, people know who Captain Price is, man. I have no fucking idea who Dusty is.
I argue that's not even necessary. So, visually, he's the guy on the thing, or at least someone indistinguishable from him. So I almost want to compare him to, say, Ghost from Modern Warfare 2, in terms of eye candy, I guess. But instead of Skull Guy, voiced by... Wasn't the guy who voiced Ghost Sex Pervert? I don't know.
We'll can't remember, but like, say what you want. Iconic voice, especially if you're American and easily impressed.
General Flag. He's general man in charge of things.
Discount Dick Cheney, right?
Instead of being, he looks like a raisin. Instead of being anywhere you'd expect, he's apparently based out of Florida via telecom, rather than
you never see him physically
else.
In person.
He's in Florida. Drucker, he is the professional black man TM. He's a colonel. The other guy's a general. He's the one actually there at Bagram coordinating the offensive.
He is, for all intents and purposes, but like he's the guy actually sending people to do stuff.
Operation Anaconda took place in the Shahai Kot Valley and Arma Mountains, southeast of Zormat.
Wait. They're actually called Arma Mountains.
Yes, they are.
Ha! That is funny.
How well do you think the operation went, Iona?
I will pretend I have not seen bits and pieces on Wikipedia and half remember them and go, I don't know, I am a goldfish. I'm assuming it went great because it's mountain terrain, it's against an enemy who knows the area, and of course, and I cannot stress this enough, May, they all have radios and will be able to communicate effectively because, it's 2002, not 1939, right?
I'll say they did worse than against the Soviets, but... better than nothing. After we've introduced the actual important characters, such as the Tier 1 Advanced Forward Operators, let's go into the basic cucks. Sergeant Dante Adams, your player character of the Rangers, who is also unvoiced, but he's black. So, that's at least one character of color that's not of the 2.
He's basically Sergeant Paul Jackson, for all intents and purposes.
I forget that he's black.
Yeah, the thing is, in COD 4, you can see that he's black. There's one mission where it shows his arm, and it's pretty obvious.
And
it's, sorry for the listener, just there's a reason we're bringing up stuff like, the token black character and so on. We're not even necessarily bringing it up because, oh, it's good or it's bad. We want you to think about why are they choosing to have these specific characters do these specific things, and what are they trying to, what kind of world do they want us to imagine?
Well, the main point
these
of
guys
this is
are fighting
all
for?
of the tier 1 people. They all seem to be white dudes, while the only 2 people of color we see are the token professional black man colonel, who has to deal with the, out of it general guy. We'll get to that. And also unnamed first-person character who's in the Rangers.
It feels to me, right, like
it's definitely not a conscious choice, but it is something that I've noticed. Like,
no, I was about to bring this up as well. So obviously, I think even your regular sort of like video game player doesn't really think about this stuff. Will notice stuff like the black guy in the horror movie who gets killed first and stuff. We all know that joke, right? And other tropes to do with race, acknowledged or not, we see this stuff, right?
The only reason why I know Adams
definitely
is black is because I saw his wrist in one of the 2 levels you play as him.
Yeah, 2 levels. But, I wanted to bring this up. I do absolutely believe it is a kind of unspoken trope that in a military, not just game, but a movie or something like that, if it's focusing on American forces basically anywhere after, either during or after Vietnam, because that's sort of where this first becomes a prominent thing, they make it a point to have at least one black character be in a position of some authority. The kind of, he's a captain or he's a sergeant, you know what I mean? I feel like that's a thing.
Once they can't use the excuse of segregation in the army anymore, post Vietnam, which I believe they only.
I know it was Korea. Korea was really desegregated.
Fair enough, but nobody remembers Korea.
This is true, yes.
Unless you play.
But yeah, no, I'm not even saying that I could prove this or write a thesis on or whatever. But I feel like that's a trope for sure. Yes. Especially in games, because I feel like I've seen it quite a few times now.
The phrasing I'm even using, the quote-unquote professional black man, is not even something I came up with. It's something I've seen used to describe other characters in unrelated media, like, side tangent, the quote I have this from is from a video by Giguk, who formerly the Anime Zone on YouTube, making a video and discussing the character of Dutch from Black Lagoon, who is a black dude who served in Nam. And is also, the very stoic. He has the sunglasses. He's fucking ripped. Holy shit. Also bald. I don't expect Iona to know anything about this because Iona is
I literally know less than nothing, yeah.
So, Operation Anaconda, it consisted of the 187th Infantry Regiment, called the Rakasans of the 101st Airborne Division.
I'm sad Sane is not here because he's literally 187th Sane, and it's the 187th.
Boo. Boo!
You're welcome.
Get the fuck.
Steamed hams.
Oh my god. The 87th Infantry Regiment, 10th Mountain Division, were to be inserted by CH-47D Chinooks, the biggest of Chunguses.
Those are the helicopters with 2 propellers, right? Of
yeah, those are the troop transporty. Yeah. It's one of those. And they were supported by 6 AH-64A Apache helicopters. I don't remember why Sane had issue with them being 64As, but that might be something. I don't know. Fire support was provided by the United States Air Force rather than artillery, and it was provided by the U.S. Navy units, and the first instance of internationalism in the quote-unquote coalition. French Air Force Mirage 2000Ds. 2000Ds nuts. Anyway, the amount of conventional assets was limited by the U.S. Central Command and civilian defense leadership, so they only had, initially going in, so much for this sort of, rah-rah, shock and awe sort of America thing.
Yeah, I think it is, let's just mention it now, that it was quite important, particularly to the American public, obviously in the wake of 9/11, that any kind of intervention in the Middle East, specifically in Iraq and Afghanistan, people broadly supported it. I'm sort of putting out quotes there, but I mean, it'd be fair to say it was broadly popular. It certainly wasn't super unpopular. I don't think that would be fair to say.
Compared to Iraq.
However, that support becomes a lot smaller when people are told, but only America is sending troops, like the British aren't, the French aren't, etc. So the idea of it being a coalition actually did matter, and the people higher up in the food chain in the U.S. military understood this. They absolutely understood that if this war was going to be popular, or at least somewhat quote unquote legal, you kind of want it to be a coalition. And to be fair, it's not like they had to force the UK particularly. I mean, I could fucking tell you that much, but with other countries, it's a bit more interesting. It's a thing worth looking up. But
the UK has walked these grounds before.
yes, I actually do. I think that is legitimately the reason that they used to justify
that's
it.
pathetic.
And it's worth pointing out, unlike in America, the war was much less popular here amongst the general public, just broadly speaking.
We have among the force composition, we have special operatives teams forming the Advanced Forward Operations Detachment, led by one Lieutenant Colonel Pete Blabber. The plan was to go in with two major forces, Task Force Hammer and Task Force Anvil. Task Force Hammer consisting of Afghan militia forces, and so you have basically the rebel forces aligned with us and special operators, while the other consists of the actual U.S. military. The idea was obviously Hammer, Anvil. You had various special forces combinations here. The Afghan militia forces were led by Commander Zia with Task Force Hammer and Zakim Khan, who was with Task Force Anvil.
This battle also has two of the, I think, longest range sniper shots ever.
I don't know about two of them, but it does have one of them. We'll get to that.
Yeah, and that was done by the Canadians.
Yeah. So, of the forces sent into the Shai-Kot Valley, Task Force Hammer and Task Force Anvil. The Hammer was made up of the Afghan militia, the Northern Alliance types, and some coalition troops, while the Anvil was made up mostly of the Rakkasans. There was also various special forces supporting this, the 5th Special Forces Group. The Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, which is a fucking name.
The Commonwealth.
There was the one squadron of the Australian Special Air Service Regiment.
The upside down SAS, yes.
Task Force Bowie was the Advanced Forward Operation. So yeah, we have Delta Force and Navy SEALs. They conducted reconnaissance, not via helicopter because they were feared of getting spotted. So they went in on ATVs, something that, when I was playing the game, Sane, God rest his soul, took particular issue with because ATVs are hecking loud.
So this operation essentially is an attempt to sort of start driving at the Taliban of sort of a geographically tricky area, right?
Yeah, mountain range. Already had a history of when the Mujahideen was around. There's a lot of Soviet, leftovers, AA guns, mostly, I'd imagine.
And also, generally speaking, it's hard to get rid of an enemy who's desperate to hold on to an area because they live there, etc. It's their own turf. It's particularly hard when it's a mountain range. And so, this operation is kind of trying to be designed to essentially get as much out of as little as possible. Kind of a smash and grab a little bit. Take over certain peaks and heights. Height is basically life in military operations. Would that all be fair?
Fair enough. Around midnight,
yes.
Units of Hammer loaded into their vehicles, left their base in Gardez, and went to the Shai-Kot. The roads sucked. Their jingle trucks flipped over, people got hurted, commanders put on the headlights, which, in a stealth operation, generally not advisable, even if you're with a convoy. Having the headlights means you're just a giant glowing asshole moving across them.
Yes. And a rule about convoys that basically goes back to the start of motorized warfare. If you want to take out a convoy, you take out the first vehicle and the last, and then you don't have a convoy anymore. You have a bunch of cars and people inside them desperately trying not to get shot.
Unit cohesion was fucked. Unfortunately for everyone still in the convoy, Grim 31, an AC-130 aircraft providing fire support and reconnaissance for the assault, spotted Harriman's convoy and, due to a failure in its internal navigation system, believed it was in a position away from friendly forces. And so you know what they did?
They did a big special friendly hug.
Grim 31 engaged the column, resulting in the death of Harriman, who was leading it, and wounding several Afghan militia and U.S. Special Forces. We'll get back to this.
Yes, the game has a interesting way of going about this. It's worth pointing out, with all this build-up we've just done, very little of this is depicted in the game. It is depicted, but it's not... I don't think you're at any point in a truck, right, apart from the opening mission.
None of the preliminary of... You don't see any of this Special Forces action, because most of it is spent, you're doing reconnaissance, you're going around, you're just like a few dudes. Despite the fact that Special Forces were, here for this at least, they were obviously not epic gamer enough to be depicted. After, getting their schnuts rocked by their own air superiority, they reached the pre-assault point at around 6:15 and waited for the 55-minute aerial bombardment of enemy positions. You want to know how much aerial bombardment they actually got?
I'm gonna take a big guess and say none.
They got some, and consisted of 6 bomb runs. Part of this is because a bomb got stuck in the launch bay of the B-1B that was on its bomb run.
That's quite a thing to have trapped in your bomb hole.
Fuck you. Along with that, some of the planes also received a knockoff call telling them to cease the bombardment. Some of the F-15E pilots later acknowledged that this may have been a communication directing Grim 31 to stop blowing up our allies. Regardless, they did not get very much air support as expected, which demoralized the shit out of the Afghan fighters, who then got their shit rocked again by mortar fire. So Task Force Hammer did not in fact enter the valley. All the cast was then sent to help Task Force Anvil. So, TLDR, the Afghans got sent in, didn't get the support they were offered, were actively shot to shit by our own air support, and did not in fact reach the valley to flesh out any of the Al-Qaeda or Taliban.
Not a great start. I'm not a military-minded person, but, like, just speaking as someone who, like, is interested in geography, it doesn't seem like an attack that's basically going to go great in any circumstance. If you actually look up the Chicot Valley and stuff, very easy to defend.
Well, they did. Well, I imagine they sent in the Afghan militia fighters as the sort of main pushing force, if it were, for a reason. Not because they may know the terrain, but because Afghan bodies are, in fact, disposable.
Yes. Although it is worth pointing out that all militaries, including the US military, sees, generally speaking, low-ranking soldiers as disposable.
Yeah, but if they're actual Americans or what have you from the coalition, then
yeah, it
people at
looks
home
bad
might...
on TV.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Rangers inserted at 6:30, landing via Chinook along the northeastern and northern ledges of the valley. They came under fire almost immediately after landing on their way to their objectives and remained pinned down by heavy mortar fire and locked in a fierce firefight throughout the day. Orbiting Apache helicopters attempted to suppress enemy mortar teams, but ran into a wall of RPG and 12.7mm fire. One Arpachi, losing all its electronics to an RPG hit. Instead of 150 to 200 fighters in the valley as expected, post-assessment held the area contained 750 to 1,000 terrorists dug in on the high ground around the valley. You think Intel kind of fucked this one a bit?
Yeah, I think Intel kind of fucked this one, which is a tradition.
God bless our Tier 1 operator, reconnaissance, airstrike, bitches. Now we're going to get into
the game, TM.
No, not even into the game. I might include this small shout out to Signalman Martin. Shout out to Signalman Martin Jacques Wallace of the Australian Special Air Service Regiment, who was awarded the Medal for Gallantry. So yeah, shout out to Australia. Why the fuck are you here? Was Gallipoli not enough
Australia,
for you people?
For those who don't know, Australia has a weird habit of being like involved in America's wars even more than Britain.
They were in Nam. They were in fucking.
Pretty much all of them that lasted long enough, which is why I find it so strange that in America now there's such anti-Australian sentiment, because
that's because of
they are literally always there in any conflicts you go into, like always, like more than we are. So I do find that one strange.
Swamp Germans, the Australians are desert, are island America.
Oh no, yeah, they're desert Anglos, yeah.
So now to the battle of Takurgar as part of Operation Anaconda. Do you know what this battle is also commonly known as?
Battle of Roberts Ridge, after the guy called Roberts who was killed up there. The circumstances of his death are basically unknown, right? As in, like,
the exact
moment
circumstances,
he died.
yeah. So Petty Officer First Class Neil C. Roberts, along with other Navy SEALs, were trying to land on the mountain in a Chinook. So they were going to land, then realized, wait, it looks like there are people here. And then they were attacked. You want to know how Roberts got separated? Fell out the back of the Chinook. Like, the ramp was open and he was standing there, and he just fell out. And they couldn't land to get him, so they just had to leave him there.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, he literally had a pratfall and it cost him his life.
Quite literally, yes.
That's, of all the ways to get killed. It sounds like that in itself would fucking hurt as well.
Yeah, also it's fucking cold, I'd imagine.
Oh, yeah.
One Chinook attempted to return and get Roberts, crash landed in the valley below 4 miles away.
That's rough.
Another one came in to get them. Immediately were pushed back off the mountain, resulting in more wounded. They send in the Ranger QRF forces, the Quick Reaction Force, at Bagram Air Base, and they sent them in to find the SEAL alone on top of the mountain.
I think I said either while you were researching this and I was talking to you, or while you were playing the game, they're basically doing Saving Private Ryan. He even has the same letter, so it's Saving Private Roberts. That is essentially what's going on, right?
Kind of. At 3:45 in the morning, The Ranger QRF was alerted to this whole thing and was sent in. They were directed to the hot LZ, so they flew directly into the same enemy ambush and immediately started getting shot at. Their door minigunner just immediately died. Shout out to Australia, because the Australian Special Air Service Regiment had infiltrated the area prior to the first helicopter crash and had remained undetected, providing various, reconnaissance of the shit going on. Apparently Australian soldiers have utilized virtual reality-style software for mission rehearsal prior to insertion, and this contributed significantly to their situational awareness in the darkness and poor weather conditions. This was the first time this capability had used for live combat mission. So Metal Gear is happening. This is what Metal Gear Solid 2 is,
I was going to say,
everyone.
so, this is where Raiden learned his shit.
Raiden
I feel like
Australia.
we always eventually come back to some kind of Metal Gear singularity. Funnily enough, this is, totally irrelevant, but this is, 6 months after the release of MGS2? I just thought I'd throw that in.
Give or take.
Iona may occasionally play the long game. She may not. You don't know.
Iona what?
Exactly.
So, what do you think happened to Roberts?
Basically, a few hours later, they get eyes on from the air or something, or Force gets there. And dude's just fucking dead, right?
Well, the Quick Reaction Force reported that were various fighters wearing Roberts' gear, and they found a helmet with a bullet hole in it. So it's presumably they just shot him in the head. If you're surrounded by Al-Qaeda, who you have been helping airstrike the shit out of for the past few days, not even few days at this point, day, yeah, they're not gonna take too kindly to that.
No, and honestly, better to do that than fucking let them take you alive. There's no Geneva Convention being honored here on either side. Yes.
So, as of March 18th, 2002, General Tommy Franks described Claire's Operation Anaconda over, later describing it as an unqualified and complete success. An investigative reporter, Seymour Hersh, refuted the official account, describing it as, in fact, a debacle plagued by squabbling between the services, bad military planning, and avoidable deaths of American soldiers, as well as the escape of key Al-Qaeda leaders, likely including Osama bin Laden. I have no idea where he got that one from, but you know what? I'm gonna believe it because it's very funny to me.
He was just there, and they actually came very close to get, that's why they were so resistant. They just had no idea, oh, he's just there.
Yeah, we accidentally found bin Laden, but we totally let him get away. Let's just pretend that didn't happen.
To be fair, I could believe it. You know what's funny? If you looked it up and researched it up, you probably could find out more or less where bin Laden was at this time. Probably, now, obviously, now that he's gone.
Shout out again to the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, because at the time, the record for the longest combat kill by a sniper was set Corporal Robert Furlong, and it was held from 2002 to 2009. Rob Furlong had the sniper record using a Macmillan TAC-50 50 caliber rifle, who apparently killed a guy with an RPK at 2.43 kilometers, 2,430 meters.
Yeah. A long fucking way indeed.
The previous record had been set a few days before by his teammate Aaron Perry. So,
I was saying this when you were playing games like Canadians, man. It's people joke, but in actual wartime, they're insane. You don't want to fucking be against a Canadian.
Now that we've discussed the history, you want to know what the plot of the game is?
The plot of the game.
There's not much plot to be said. You know all the events that I just described? So imagine the quite literal Wikipedia-level summary I just gave, but that is the plot of the mission, barring the first two levels of the prologue. The prologue, you start off in, the title card says Pakistan. The mission says you're in Afghanistan, so you're assumably somewhere on the border. You're inserting to meet an informant who's ratting out to, the coalition TM, meeting up with some Navy SEALs. This is where you meet the AFO Neptune. You go in, everything's fine, you're just driving around. Immediately ambushed. Turns out, Tariq is either a traitor or has been compromised. And this is where we get to the first issue of the game campaign. They say that they're fighting Chechens. Presumably not entirely Chechens, but yes, there are Chechens here. Now, Iona, why is it a problem that there are Chechens here?
So, Chechens live on and around kind of near the Caucasus mountain range in what is the country of Russia, right? Part of the reason the Chechens sort of are a thing, particularly at the time this game was made and at the time the real operation was going on.
Was the Chechen War still going on at this point?
I am not sure.
It might have been one of them.
I think we were on the. I think they were on the second one by that point. There is like to this day still kind of small scale fighting going on in Chechnya. It's a place. It's a flashpoint. You know what I mean? It's a place that could.
They do not want to be Russian, and Russia does not care for that.
Yes, essentially yes. But okay, so Chechens are both, very independence-minded. They want to not be Russian, right? Kind of a big deal for them. And I kind of stress this enough. They are very, 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 very far away from either Afghanistan or Pakistan, like physically. They are so far away. It's
the entirety of Iran.
Stupid. But the more important thing here, right? So this is a little marker I'm putting down. Chechens do appear again in the game. This is not the last time we'll see them. This is the opening mission, right? There is a conspiracy theory, I think, amongst like tier 1 guys, right? This is later on. This is to be clear. This is sort of like
Navy SEALs. The ones
Navy
who write
SEALs.
books, as we'll say.
Yeah, the ones who write books. And this is like from 2010 onwards, more or less, right? This is sort of later. This is once the war has like been going on for a little while. This wasn't really there sort of at the start.
Peak forever.
There's this conspiracy theory that the reason the Taliban are so effective, or like why they won't give ground and all this stuff, like why do the Vietnamese just keep resisting our freedom, right? Like the reason that keeps happening is because they have the help of Chechens, because like Chechens are tough, this, that, and the other thing. And it's basically just a total conspiracy theory. People have looked into it. There is no evidence whatsoever that like Chechen fighters have went and joined the Taliban in any significant way, or like if they are not like moving guns. They're not. You know what I mean? That's not a thing that's happening. But like people who have fought there against the Taliban believe this. Some of them.
There's
it's
unified,
very strange,
or even disunified, like Chechen expeditionary jihad. Any vague smidgen of Chechens would probably just be like a dude guy, if even that.
Yeah, some guy who is a Chechnyan who then joined the Taliban, probably by totally different means. Yeah, like it's our point being, there is not a detachment of guys who are Chechens, right, who fought for the Taliban either then or now. It's, I think, literally the only thing they have in common is that they're both majority Muslim, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Taliban obviously, but Chechens as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's literally the only commonality. So that's interesting, right? That there's this commonality, and also sort of gets into a bit of the racial politics of Russia. But Chechens, to people like you and me, may look pretty white, right? Like, I'm not saying that's what they are, because like the concept.
The one
of a
identifier that one of the Delta Force operators, I believe, uses to identify that they are Chechens is that they find a dead body with red hair.
Yes, and
so I'm sorry, Iona. Scotland is actually part of Greater Chechnya.
Yeah, and what's so frustrating with that, this is totally irrelevant, but it is possible for someone from that area to have stuff like red hair, but it's very insider baseball. It's not common by any means. It's sort of like how, amazingly, guys, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jewish people do exist. They do exist and are out there. Like, you know what I mean? It's very fucking...
And to get back
it's
to
a very
what you're
sad,
saying,
very
yes,
limited way.
the Chechens are, in fact, very white-looking.
Oh. Yes.
Hello, everybody! Special guest star, 187 Sane here. Sane, what do you think about Chechnya?
Oh, fuck, is this being recorded?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, see, I'm in the car, so you're gonna get some hot takes. Chechens were not in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Hello, folks, I'm podcasting from the Sane Mobile.
Oh,
So
God,
I need to turn you down because my mic is almost
I'm gonna have to
certainly
figure out
picking
how
you
to
up.
splice this in. Anyway, Sane. Sane, silence.
Yeah?
So...
Ignore the strange cut there. You'll learn about that in a bit.
Yes,
we're not
that is what we call a special gift from God.
AIDS?
What? Anyway.
Fuck you.
So
that was an
we do the
Iona
first
joke.
mission. I know, yeah, and I'm deliberately disowning it.
Fair.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Oh yes, disown me. What are you, my parents?
Be my parents when I come out to them.
Anyway, they find Tariq.
Oh my God! Sorry, May, because this will be the last chance I get to say this. Totally irrelevant, but this is basically the most trans episode we've done. Because you and I are trans.
Yes.
And we are here. Yes. Can't believe I just noticed that.
The agenda.
The agenda, yes. I'm going to love people who've not really been paying attention, who are like, oh yeah, listen to your podcast, they go and listen to it. And it's just at this point, like presumably two episodes in, where they're like, huh, there's trans people in this.
Tariq.
Yes.
We find Tariq. He's like,
yes, we find
like,
Tariq.
Yo, they rescue him. They're like, yo, dude, you betrayed us. What the fuck? And he's like, nah, fam, they found me out. I almost died. They got like dudes in this one valley.
And this is where we get the moment of like, by the way, the Taliban hate women, TM.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he literally says verbatim. I can't remember who he's quoting, but it's an advertisement for the war, basically, from the government. Like, it's fucking so on the nose.
Upon informing the SEALs that, like, there are like 500 to 1,000 fighters in the Shai-Kot Valley, which is not the actual intelligence we had, as you may remember. So already we're at our first historical retcon to make America look better. Oh yeah, we totally knew that how many fighters were in the Shai-Kot Valley beforehand correctly, instead of being totally wrong.
Yeah, they just called it a UAV,
Tariq, who was originally in the Taliban but became an informant for, America. His quote on the Medal of Honor wiki, by the way, is, "You have to kill them all, Tariq." So that's...
Jesus Christ.
Yes. Family, daughter. His status, alive. Rank, informant. He has a young daughter, which is known because of Mother's question, "Why should we trust you?" He doesn't have a southern accent, but whatever. Tariq responds by saying, "Please, I have a daughter. I want her to go to school. I want her to be a person and have a life. Do you not understand?" Apparently he's from Wisconsin now. Shut up. So yeah, this is the whole, oh yes, they are Muslim and thus they hate women of the game.
Yes.
Also the only one, because it's the closest we'll get to, characterization from most of these people. So even this is like, this is bad, but it's also like a one sliver of like attempted humanity that we get.
Yeah, it's also basically the only kind of direct ideology the game gives us, at least in dialogue and through character, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, yes, the Taliban are now have the one ideological trait: hates women's.
Yes,
hates America.
Which is at best a simplification. Let's put it that
Apparently,
way.
Tariq is based on an Afghani warlord, a Shepard, and a Taliban platoon leader who were featured in The Mission: The Men in Me by Pete Blabber, a consultant for the game. He was also one of the higher-ranking people in Operation Anaconda, if you do recall. I think I mentioned him.
Yes, I do recall the name because his name is very funny.
No relation to Brendan Blabber of Jello Apocalypse.
I think to give perspective, listener, to like just how bereft of like ideology, not even ideology, but like bereft of characterization this game is, right? Think of the opening of COD 4 and like how much is dispelled by just Captain Price saying, we've got a civil war in Russia, blah blah blah, and he just goes, overall the world is in great shape. Like right away you get a lot of like context for like how these guys see the world, how the world is generally, right? So much more, and that's just the first lines of the game. The first lines of the game.
The importance of the line, "What the hell kind of name is Soap?" cannot actually be understated in this case, because Soap is kind of a funny name to have as a code name. But they sort of address it, and then it's just sort of like, alright, we've acknowledged it, let's continue on.
Yeah, and like again,
this,
I'm not even. Yeah,
this you gotta deal with motherfuckers
that...
named Mother, Preacher, Voodoo, and a Rabbit. Fucking
and
Rabbit.
they do nothing with this. We cannot stress enough, because I fucking sat and watched you play this, right? And I feel bad for myself, right, for sitting watching it. You had to fucking play it, mate. I can't imagine how you feel, but like just from my perspective, there is no like banter at all. Anyone who has spent more than 5 minutes with two soldiers in a room who are like in the same military or whatever, or like on the same side, let's say, they fucking banter constantly. Like it's a thing.
We don't even get the slurs.
It's a thing people do generally, but like soldiers especially. And this game has none of that. None. It's one of those things that like at first you don't notice it at first when you're watching, right? But as hour 2 becomes hour 3 and then hour 4, you start really wishing someone would just crack like a terrible racist joke, because at least it would be a change of pace, and it keeps not happening, and your soul is just vacuous. Like, sorry, this game is insufferable as a game.
And now
I just want that out there.
Now mission 2. We're still in the prologue, by the way. Mission 2. Set ambiguously after 9/11, but before March of 2002. You get to see AFO Neptune going to capture Bagram airfield with a contingent of Afghan National Army soldiers.
You will have seen Bagram. Bagram is quite an iconic looking place. If you look up pictures, you've seen it before.
It's like the one airfield.
Pretty much, yeah. I think Modern Warfare 2 actually directly depicts it. But yeah, you will have seen it, listener, before.
Several problems with this mission. 1. Bagram Airfield was actually taken by the Special Boat Service of the United Kingdom. 2. There was nobody
The
there to
SBS.
fight. The airfield was basically not occupied because the Taliban barely had an air force then, and they probably didn't care much for it because it was just
Yeah,
shit
I
they
think
got from
basically
the
the
Soviets.
locals basically walked them in, right? Because, I mean, yeah.
They just waltzed
one was
in
killed,
until
right?
the Americans came in and were like, oh yes, this is our forward operating base now. As far as I'm aware, there was no mention of, like, any altercation, which you'd expect there to be any mention of. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure they just walked in.
And in the game,
Oh, man, in the game. So the game starts with Afghan National Army. I don't think... Of the National Army of Afghanistan, I would presume they would be aligned with the Taliban at the time, who are the government of Afghanistan in 2001. If it was anyone, it would be, like, Afghan militia, like, were involved in the push in the Shai-Kot Valley.
yeah, it'd be like
But
Northern Alliance
They're
guys.
specifically named as the Afghan National Army, which the specific, continuity, therefore, of I can't say. But they're going in with, like, you're on a technical. You're not even gunning the technical. You're sitting in, like, the front passenger seat until your gunner gets killed and you have to, like, rush to the gun. At what point, why not just have you start in the gun?
Yeah, it's your on-rails segment.
It's
the
the first
beginning of a
on-rails
trend
vehicle
this
segment.
game... Yes, the beginning of a trend this game does that I fucking despise of doing what Call of Duty does aesthetically, but with none of the charm, intuition, enjoyment, or timing that the Call of Duty games manage.
It's not even
Yeah.
just, though, that you're now, making a fictional attack on an unoccupied base with no British people are mentioned. It's just the Afghan National Army and 4 Navy SEAL boys on a technical. But throughout the mission, when the Taliban launch a counterattack, but you use, like, binoculars and, like, an AC-130 to order various airstrikes upon their position. It's the very, like, oh, you have the Predator drone sort of thing, or the AC-130 mission, but instead of controlling it, you're just directing it from binoculars, which is
Yeah, I
significantly
remember
less
seeing you do a
interesting.
lot of laser painting.
Yeah. They also have tanks. So the Taliban send, like, a tank assault after you with, like,
Oh my god, that's
hundreds of
right, they give
dudes.
them tanks.
There's a whole thing. I do not need to specify that is highly improbable just on the face of it. I'm pretty sure they were using, like, T-60 whatevers. I'm not good
It was
with
some
tank
kind of,
chronology.
Russian...
Vaguely
yeah.
Russian kind of tank. They looked rusted as shit, which I guess if they were using tanks would be a thing. But they weren't, so they didn't, so none of that fucking happened. Anyway, we get a montage of them setting up the base in the...
Oh, that's right, yeah, they do a thing they never do again, which is like a montage, and you sort of
That's
see
because
them
it's the
putting
only
all the computer
significant time
monitors and shit
skip
up.
of the game. Because the game is
Yeah.
like... The game technically consists of only, like, 3 days maximum worth of events. A10 Warthogs. Okay. Thank you, Sane in the chat, who is now haunting us like a ghost. You're directing A10 Warthog fire towards the enemy position. And then it skips ahead to March of 2002 and the beginnings of Operation Anaconda.
9/11 is just 6 months old. It's starting to learn to sit upright on its own.
9/11 is third trimestering. I don't know about pregnancy.
And neither do I.
Nobody has had sex.
Hello, folks. Sane is here recording locally. So, I missed a lot of stuff because I had to go meet a friend that had some stuff he owed me.
Hi everybody.
And I had-
Hi everybody. Welcome to the Well There's Your Burger Town Ramirez cast. Say hello to your third co-host. Sane.
Hello, it's Sane. I was
Sane,
previously
what-
podcasting from the
Sane,
Sane
welcome.
Mobile.
I hope
But,
you're ready for an unforgettable luncheon.
Oh god, they're doing it already.
Yeah, so get the
that
expert-
random cut that May mentioned was me in the Sane Mobile podcasting from an undisclosed location.
Yeah,
Yes.
if I'm fucked enough to actually figure out how to put it in, I'm sure I'll do it. Probably not. Anyway, Sane, we are about to do Operation Anaconda, but we're different. So
But
tell
different because it's a Navy SEAL's wet dream. A Navy
Yes.
SEAL that may not have had a tragically funny death. May or may not have consulted on this. We don't know. I'd like to believe he did, though.
A tragically funny death, like, yeah. Fucking, what was it I said? That, like, he basically had a fucking pratfall.
He did the stupidest thing you could do with a guy with PTSD. I will not allegate further because someone close to him is notoriously litigious.
Yeah, you're talking about something
Why do I
totally
keep wanting
different.
to call him Kyle Rittenhouse? It's something with Kyle, but it's not.
Yeah,
Kyle
I
Rittenhouse.
think it
You're on
was
about Chris
Kyle.
You're on about Christoph Kyle. Yeah,
Christoph
I
Kyle,
should point
yes,
out
that
that
was
until
him.
you joined, we had not mentioned him even once, because I don't think he has anything to do with this.
Well, no, we could have mentioned him with the Chechen thing, but we didn't.
Oh yes, Chechens in Afghanistan. That famous line.
We'll
from
get
the
to
Billy
that
Joel
again
song.
later.
Yeah,
When we
sweet.
get to
I've already sort of made clear to the audience that like there just would not be Chechen fighters in Afghanistan. I've done a bit of that.
Yeah, so you already mentioned that was a conspiracy theory, yes?
Yeah, I've made sure
Okay.
that was clear. Yeah.
So once we are actually at basically the beginning of the operation, we meet two characters, General Flagg and Colonel Drucker, aka
Discount Dick
Flag is
Cheney.
probably
Dick Cheney's
suck.
ballsack and the professional black man, as it were.
Ugh,
Flagg
God,
wants
yeah,
to
the
be all
Colonel.
like, oh, send in the troops, big grand battle plan, big poopy big battle. While
Which
Drucker is
probably-
like, let's send in tier 1 operators, TM, to recon the positions and use the locals. But yes, Flagg being like, nah, I don't trust the locals. You got 24 hours to send in the 10th Mountain Division, the 101st Airborne, parentheses, the Rakkasans we mentioned earlier, which are technically part of the 101st Airborne.
They're just one regiment, which is like... I can't remember how table of organization
Like
works.
1,000-ish.
Yeah, that tracks.
Accuracy.
Regiment's a
be
very British way of organizing land forces.
Oh, fucking British, where you have, like, so many
Like, we
different
still
types.
have regiments.
Yeah, we
like,
have
to this
combat
day.
regiments, too, but, like, if you're a ranger...
The player takes over
Or-
as Deuce, the Wolf Pack, Delta Force boyos, including
God.
Beardy McBeardman. Insert image here.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Ubisoft appearance, dude. Yeah.
Fucking... The, like, guy who's become the joke of Special Forces video games everywhere. You remember Nomad from, Ghost Recon Wildlands? Like, his photo's probably heavily based off of this guy.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
I don't
How
understand
like
this
basically
reference.
every sort of Special Forces TM game anything does this. face.
Ubisoft cucks aside. The Colonel said after the Wolfpack complete their mission, which is basically, they're scouting around with ATVs, as we mentioned.
Oh, God.
Of course, in this, instead of just, scouting out from range, this mission consists of you driving around on ATVs, invading villages.
Doing some war crimes.
You're supposed to be stealthy, but when I played it, I basically just, on normal difficulty, just shot them all, ignoring the stealth, and that basically worked out most of the time.
What's funny is in different parts of the town, you'd cause an alert, people would shoot and stuff, right? Like total
then, like,
battle,
a block
and then you
over.
turn a corner, and there'd be a bunch of NPCs like acting like nothing had happened again, and like obviously anyone who's played a game for more than 5 minutes knows this is a thing, but like it was so stark.
This
not,
is
not
how...
to mention Call of Duty again, but there's a reason why Call of Duty in its mandatory stealth missions makes it so that if you're alerted in certain segments, you're immediately killed. It's because
I can't believe we're
the
saying this,
diegesis
but Call
does
of
not
Duty-
work if you can
Call of
just kill
Duty-
them all. There's this thing
Call of
called ludonarrative dissonance. I'm about to get shot for that. I'm no. People really don't like that word. I
What
don't
dissonance?
know. Ludonarrative dissonance. Basically, there's a disconnect between the gameplay and the story. In this case, being that you can engage in a very loud firefight with multiple people and grenades and shit, but in just the next block over, none of them have noticed because of the mandatory stealth aspect of the mission needing continuity.
Huh? I did not know there was
Listen,
like a specific phrase
this
for
is
that.
probably exactly what let's just say the guy that consulted on this game thought again, there's a reason why
Well,
they
there
thought
are
they were
several
up against
presumable
Chechens.
consultants. We only have one that's been named. He wasn't a Naval SEAL. He was a blabber, as mentioned. I don't actually...
Have we brought up that point that they probably disclosed some top secret information for a throwaway line in the game?
Okay, no.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. We'll especially get to that in the sequel where they actually did get in trouble. But we'll get into your conspiracy theories later. After the Wolfpack mission,
what's the mission? Yeah, this mission is the one with ATVs, correct?
yes, you
the
drive
least...
around on ATVs. The only vehicle section of the game where you actually control where the vehicle is going, I must add.
And
so
that's a big TM.
And it looked like it controlled like ass.
It did control like ass, and for specific parts of it where you're at your destination, it takes away control anyway. So it quite literally, it could have just been another scripted sequence without ATV
or like
controls.
a cutscene. My God.
Yes.
But you want to give the controller the illusion of choice.
So after that, Flag calls in and he's like, "Oh, we got what's with this convoy approaching? We don't know who they are." And
Fuck.
because the colonel had already sent in Afghan militia forces. It keeps saying ANA in the wiki because in the game they say that, and I don't know
Let
why.
me pull up the fucking
Afghan
Afghan National Army.
Afghan militia forces aligned with the U.S. go in, and so the colonel is like, "Oh, we don't see their convoy thing. You got to fire on them." While the general is like, "We got to fire on them. They don't have ID." And the colonel's like, "Hey, wait, those might be our guys. We shouldn't do it." And so, but the general through the video call to the AC-130 operator, who are, I guess, on the line in the
Which would not
fob.
happen in real life.
They don't make clear how that works, but he can hear like this conversation. Yeah.
Tells the AC-130 to fire on the convoy, which is, unsurprisingly, the friendly convoy that gets its schnuts kicked in. And so they, along with the Afghan militia forces, after being bombed, retreat, which, fair enough. In real life, the AC-130 thing was from the AC-130 because they had, like, equipment troubles. While in this, they have to both justify it with like, "Oh no, see, we're not incompetent."
They turn it into a dramatic moment.
Not even just that. They make it a, "Oh no, we're not incompetent. See, there's this one guy, this out of touch general sitting at his hoity-toity office in Florida. Oh, we gotta go, brr, rah, 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 shock and awe."
Just sort of basically saying that the war would have went fine, but for like a few
everything
bad
that happened is
side.
just because of a few bad apples. TM.
Yeah.
Not
in this case, Jeb Bush.
Yeah. The Afghan militia retreating is both. I don't know why they did it because that's not what happened. The only idea I have to assume is that they wanted it to be like, "Oh, this is to raise tension and make the later, bits where the Rangers get their ass kicked upon insertion seemed like it's more reasonable," even though that happened in real life anyway when they still had the support. And also, they didn't want to have to program in friendly AI that did not look like, the Rangers, because that means
the whitest motherfuckers you've ever. These guys are borderline albino, by the way.
The
also, I
texture
just
work
want
in
to
this
state
game is
that,
not ideal.
they like somehow downgraded the graphics from Bad Company 2 for the campaign.
Oh, just say how it is. It looks like shit. It looks
does.
terrible.
I mean,
and look, this game came out in 2010, right? But dude,
it's
it
using
looks
the Unreal
fucking
3
terrible
engine,
for 2010.
which is impressive.
Halo
because
3.
that's what the previous Medal of Honor games had used, including Airborne, which by far, while not a looker, looked a lot better than this. And I'm sure there are other games on Unreal 3, a lot of them, that can be used to dispute the engine being the reason this looks bad.
Fun fact, Halo Reach still pretty much uses the same whatever it came out with that year, and it still looks light years better.
The Rangers get sent in, as in real life.
Yeah.
So you control Dan T. Adams. You go in as the Rangers.
She's been doing that a lot.
Yes. Look, I have the one bit. It's to cover up my actual stuttering and mispronunciations. If you can't tell when I'm fucking up, then it's something. Look, so they go in with the Rangers. If you've ever seen any promotional material for this game, you may notice like, oh, they're on the Chinook with all these Ranger dudes, soldier mans. They land in. There's this gunfight in the sand, and it's very like intense. In what is basically the only interesting sequence in the game, you do go in. You're like, oh, it's chaos. It's all rada, and you play
it's
as
very cinematic.
Yes,
Sure. I will give it that much.
It's cinematic, and in an actual interesting decision, Sergeant Adams is not like a rifleman. He's the machine gunner. So you start off with a saw, I believe. I don't entirely remember. But you have a machine gun, and your AI allies in this game can give you ammo for, like, NATO guns, basically. So you have effectively infinite ammo with the machine gun. And they even implement some kind of, like, suppression mechanic. Later in the mission, you have to suppress an enemy machine gun position so your guys can throw in a smoke to be able to destroy it via airstrike. You go in with the mission, your squad consisting of Dante and people who don't matter. One of them is voiced by Yuri Lowenthal. They go around, they get cut off trying to secure the second LZ, It's becoming a sort of last stand thing. They're slowly pushed back in cover. Then 2 Apaches come in and, like, bail them out. Then you get to the Apache mission, which is bad.
So I will need to do my ramble here about how they do everything from Call of Duty, but bad and worse and, like, more annoying. But first, I'll let Sane go nuts about all the Apache shit.
Oh, for God's sake. Okay, so we're on this mission. All right.
Yes. Yeah, you prime us, Sane, because I yeah.
The A-46 Apache was developed during the Cold War as a for the United States Army as a tank buster. It's got a 30mm autocannon. It can fire unguided rockets and guided munitions in the form of the Hellfire anti-tank missile.
Saying, not to cut you off, but I know when we were playing the game, you specifically had issue with them being 64A model Apaches. Was there any reason for that, or was it just because they were?
Those would have mostly been phased out at this point. Like, we mostly have A64Ds, which are the longbows. Which have the little radar dome at the top. Have you ever seen Apache with that little circular donut thing at the top? That's the radar dome. And a bit of a side for it. What does the longbow edition of the Apache do better than the others can? It can identify and engage up to 300 hostile tanks as fast as the computer can program an attack run and destroy tanks with its given munitions. It can also link to other Apaches and fire and give them firing solutions for their missiles.
So you're saying the Apache
essentially, like, you can use one to fire.
The Apache can be used for close air support, but not in the way that they depicted in this mission. They're using it as like, I'm having like almost flashbacks to this mission.
Most of the mission consists of you, not as the pilot, but as the gunner, flying around literally on rails. It's just an on-rails shooter in the most direct sense. Firing at various positions. You gotta, if you've ever played a turret gunner mission in Call of Duty, you gotta shoot the rocket launcher dudes so they don't kill you.
Or even, like, honestly, if you've ever been the gunner in the Apache in the Battlefields 3 and 4. Yeah, it's kind of like that.
It's good to mention, because Battlefield 3 literally has a mission where I never got to finish because I was not good at video games. You control an Apache and you're attacking, like, ground targets in it, including actual armor, because you're fighting, whoever you fight in Battlefield 3, because Battlefield is
probably the Russians,
But you have full control of the aircraft.
Yeah. So this mission, like, the Apache can be used to engage ground targets, but it's not like
infantry
in the open or whatever you want to call them.
It can do.
But the way they use the Apache, they're like slinging the thing around like it can turn on a dime. A helicopter cannot instantly turn in the best of conditions, like because they're pulling like what? Okay, so like if you've ever been in an airplane, when you take off, the max you can experience is 9 Gs. Humans start to black out around 3 Gs. And you might black out when you're in a car crash because you're doing about 20 Gs.
Even people with specialized training in this stuff cannot push much beyond 6 Gs, I think, before starting to get real issues. And that's with, like, the best training.
Unless you have a specialized suit, which Apache pilots do not get. They don't get the fancy suit that, like, the SR-71 pilots got to stay alive while doing serious Gs. But they're flinging the thing around at, like, 90-degree angles. You would black out.
I remember watching it and mentioning, just to be clear, the reason I'm so quiet in this bit, I don't know much about military vehicles and stuff, but I got the distinct impression watching it of like, I can almost see the rails it is following. Like, it's an on-rail segment.
It's very
in the most literal sense. It doesn't really move.
If you were playing this in VR, you would lose your lunch everywhere.
Your primary armaments are like a machine gun using explosive rounds and rockets, but the rockets do not get the full range of motion that your gun does. So, if you need to get a target that's slightly too far to the left, you can't hit it with the rocket because the rockets are static and do not move, while the gun has at least some kind of swivel.
The Apache, literally, there's a data link for the gunner where the gun will look wherever will focus on whatever the gunner's looking on. Like, that's some pretty cool shit. And I don't know how the Hellfire missile lock-on system works, but I can't assume it's that different. But these pilots are allegedly pulling like almost 9G turns. They would be fucking soup. They would black out unconscious and the helicopter would crash. At some point,
I need to make a quick side tangent to the Medal of Honor Wiki's general plot description of this segment. The Apaches destroy several Taliban-held villages before RTBing. Specifically, what they do is they go around. They're supposed to be taking out like mortar positions and the like. They completely level several villages that totally
that's
no
literally
civilians
what
here,
I was going to
but
mention to sort of bring the human element to this, right?
I felt genuinely uncomfortable playing it at the time.
No, I didn't.
Because
it was hard to watch.
This is the
was
sole
hard to watch
example
'cause-
of destruction physics. Because while the multiplayer is on Frostbite 1.5, we'll get to that. The single player is on Unreal 3, so they had to program them in as rudimentary as they are. You fire heavy explosives and missiles, and you can remove buildings. You completely level these villages.
It somehow manages to be both rudimentary in appearance, graphically, but also still recognizable enough for what it is to be uncomfortable. Unreal segments like these in these games, particularly this time period, right? So the most famous example I think is Death from Above from COD 4, but you've got other ones as well, right? The Battlefield 3 mission in the jet, which I didn't like, but people remember it fondly, so
great.
Fair enough, right? These are all advertisement, listener, right? It's an advertisement for, first of all, the military, of course,
the Air Force,
but also the experience of being in an aircraft, right? Because they know that there are people out there.
Army.
Yeah, because they know there are people that are into planes. They know there are people that are into tanks and helicopters, right? All this shit. And then you've just got tech heads who just love gizmos and shit like that, right? And these are not in and of themselves bad things. But my point with this is, it's an advertisement. It's why it goes on so long. It's why they show you every little thing, right? It's a guided tour, and that's how you're able to get access to the information where they can put this stuff in the game and stuff like that, right?
They didn't even do the Apache justice. I can't believe I'm having to say
but
that.
No, that's what I was gonna say was both this and when we get to COD 4, I will bring this up with Death from Above as well. It's genuinely quite hard to get across how fucked up it is that you can just fucking level a village, and you do it a few times I think in this mission. And just
COD
kind
4,
of go about your day.
fire zones.
Yeah, I don't think they even sort of have a throwaway line about their not being civilians. Maybe they do, right? But
no, they don't.
It's very fucking throwaway. It's very no thought put into it. You're just destroying some fucking people's villages.
Even assuming none of the civilians are there, you're destroying their homes and livelihoods.
Yes, so even so. And listener, please try to think about you're just bombing people's houses.
Okay.
That is what you are doing. You're not really. What war are you winning here? This is what I mean. Think about this in a wider context. In what universe, in what world is what you're doing okay and justifiable? You ever notice there's not a lot of games depicting bombing runs in World War II, and the ones that do tend to not focus specifically on the bombing part? You ever notice that? That's kind of my point, right? People who know what I mean will know what I mean, but I had to get that out there because watching this was genuinely fucking nauseating towards the end. Now, gameplay-wise, it goes on way too fucking long. Way too fucking long. Death from Above seems very long in COD 4. It's actually quite quick. If you get all the targets right and you know what to do, you can get it finished in as little as 8 minutes. This was at least 20 minutes. Almost certainly longer. And it was insufferable to watch. Okay, that's my ramble.
So, the thing that immediately caught my eye was the opening part of the helicopter mission. When you're first looking through your optics, is infrared of some guys moving some boxes. And do you know what came out about the same year that this game came out? The Manning leaks. And do you know what Chelsea Manning at one point showed video of U.S. Army Apache operators doing? Gunning down journalists through their infrared optics.
Yeah, I cannot believe I forgot to mention that, but yes, because I brought it up when we were watching it.
That's why this mission
but yeah.
was just so distasteful, because all I could think about is that.
And nobody at the time was bringing this up. What they were bringing up at the time was, in the multiplayer you were playing as the Taliban because it's set during
So should we just do the fucking thing of reaction now, seeing as we're just getting into. So, listener, if you've ever seen footage depicting the war in Afghanistan from a helicopter pilot's perspective, it's almost certainly from the Manning leaks. And it almost certainly depicts stuff like this mission. And as Sane rightly points out, it's just it's too fucking similar. To the point where, if I didn't know that the Manning leaks were basically contemporaneous to this, I would assume one inspired the other. Now, they didn't, but if you assumed that, I wouldn't blame you. It's
There's
pretty
a reason-
fucking 1-to-1.
There's a reason why I call this game the Navy SEALs fan fiction about what they thought the war was.
But
Because it absolves the U.S. of any war crimes. And when it does admit the war crimes, it's like, no, one guy fucked up.
and
No, they were
also,
just systemic war crimes.
it's Navy SEAL propaganda before everyone pretended that they loved the Navy SEAL. So it makes this game as a cultural artifact, right? We're right in the middle of like doing this sort of plotting along the plot, right? But I think we might as well just get out now. The singular like cultural impact that this game has is worth studying anyway. It's worth looking at. Is that it is basically an advertisement for the Navy SEALs before the Navy SEALs killed Bin Laden, and that's kind of a niche, small window. That's probably the extent to which Medal of Honor 2010 is like genuinely interesting.
Because it depicts everyone but the Navy SEALs as kind of incompetent fucking idiots, which is hilarious. I'd rather be rescued by Rangers or Delta Force than the fucking Navy SEALs.
I'd rather the Russians rescue me from a hostage situation.
Oh no, they just kill everybody instead, but alright.
Yeah, but at least they'd gas you first, so you'd have to be fucking awake for it. Anyway,
so now we go.
The rest of the game can be relatively sped through. Gameplay-wise, it's much of the same mediocre first-person shooting. The mission,
sort of running
mission,
around a mountain, right?
Yes, the mission directly after.
Oh, we forgot the worst part of the Apache mission besides killing innocents.
Oh yes, so the Apache mission, one of the Apaches loses its missiles to an RPG.
Oh, that's right.
Sane?
And oh my fucking god! So the female pilot, which I don't even know if
The one
I think
Juan
she's.
is in the
Oh
game.
yeah. No. Quick side note. I think
she's
the
like,
only female
okay, I'll
character,
target you. Shoot. As I mentioned, this is something Apaches can do. Do you know what any sane, reasonable Apache commander at that point would have said? I'm gonna fucking RTB, because they also mentioned multiple times that they're low on fuel. Hey kids. This was early in the war. We didn't have, well, we had air superiority, but also, like, there's no way to properly... The Apache can't get in-flight refueled, like a lot of other helicopters can. And, do you know what they did in real life? They just fucking went back to base.
Yeah.
They just fucking went back to base like it... But no, because the Navy SEALs are like Americans, have infinite fuel, infinite ammo. The Apache mission made me want to become an alcoholic.
Diegetically, they couldn't think of another... Because you don't have control of the helicopter, they had to think of something to, like, give you targets to shoot at, because you can't mark them on your own. And the game already barely, with the UI, identifies what you're supposed to be firing at to begin with. So if they didn't have the other helicopter, the mission would just cease to function, because then you would just realize that you're just shooting at everything with a dead-eye expression and no gun overheating. You just hold down the mouse button and then fire
there's
missiles
no
occasionally.
fucking, again, the comparison has to be made death from above. There's no banter. Again, a thing this game sorely needs. I mean, what this game fucking needs is to never be released. But, like, there's no communication between you and the pilot at all that is not, like, perfunctory to the task at hand, and it's obviously,
I'm not even sure if the person you're playing as in the Apache speaks, or it's just the person flying the
I honestly
Apache
can't
around.
remember, and I'm
No,
not a way to
it's literally
fucking
just the
look
only
it up.
person that really speaks is the female pilot and the male pilot of your gunship.
Oh, no,
And
that's right. Yeah, they talk to each other, but I don't...
You are just another, silent protagonist, screaming internally with your ASD, saying, "Oh, we're doing war crimes, but I can't say anything because, I'll lose my job."
Yes, the red faction problem.
Okay, so then we go on to the sniper mission, which...
remember you glitched it?
Oh,
remember
right.
that?
So you remember the bit where you're doing a snipey in Call of Duty 4, or probably other games? So you're on top of a mountain, sniping at, like, you're the wolf pack in this, the Delta Force.
The Chechens, you can tell they're Chechens through the
Taliban.
Oh, yeah, this is when the
sniping at
Chechens make their
Taliban and
grand
Al Qaeda
return,
camps on the other side of the mountain using infrared. You're using a Beretta to do this, which is not... So the gun that this operation had the sniper record set twice, using a 50 caliber rifle. That was not a Beretta. A Beretta is an anti-material rifle, which is a different kind of thing, even though they're both using 50.
The hint's kind of in the name. Like, when they say anti-material, they fucking mean it.
The bullet drop-off is a bit different on a Beretta. And it's very clearly, like, a Beretta. You see it strapped to the ATVs. You see it on and off. Like, it's very clear. It's got the silver. It's got, like, the shapes into it. The Macmillan, insert image here, is a very, like... normal-looking rifle in comparison. So when I first played the mission, I got the gist that, like, okay, you gotta snipe the people. I accidentally sniped one of the people too soon, because the way it's supposed to go is you fire at the targets that you're told to fire at. This guy's like, oh shit, gets on the radio to like alert the others. I shot that guy.
Yeah, you're sort of doing a sweep from left to right. Yeah.
I shot the radio guy first, which means the sequence could not continue as the triggered dialogue would not play. So I had to restart the mission because I soft locked the game. Game design.
Yeah, some god tier coding from fucking EA or whoever the fuck did this shit. Oh, do you want to know how the fucking Apaches don't get wasted too? De3ta fucking snipes the guy in the 20mm Russian anti-aircraft gun because these dumb fucks didn't go home when they were supposed to. Motherfuckers.
Oh yeah, because they were out of ammo by that point. After two consecutive, 1.25 consecutive, oh, you don't actually get to do, normal gameplay. It's basically specialized gameplay gimmicks. You go around with, it's Deuce Bigelow and Dusty McBeard Man. They go around. You see a dead guy with a red hair, and this is where we get the whole.
Chechens are famously redheads.
Chechens.
Yes. He is ginger. Clearly, it is the Chechens, and there are like.
Oh wait, you mentioned also in the Tariq mission that they ID'd the Chechens while in a moving vehicle, right?
Yes, at night.
Okay, yeah, just god tier phrenology shit.
You get engaged a few more times. Then at some point you switch back. I believe this is a different mission. I don't really. You switch back to
They're all the fucking same.
You switch back to the Navy SEALs in AFO Neptune, where you're going around trying to get extracted because there are a bunch of, Chechen Taliban, Qaeda gamers about. You get to a Chinook, you get on the Chinook, you get engaged by enemy fire, so you have to leave two people behind on the mountain, which did not happen in real life. So because of this...
Also, do you want to know what they ripped off the fucking Chinook picture from? We'll have to insert it here, but while we were playing this game, our friend was talking about how during an operation, a Pennsylvania Air National Guardsman who flew as an EMS pilot, did the most dope-ass landing of a Chinook, on a building. They literally parodied that for this. Unashamedly.
No, they recreated that for a different scenario for the sake of visual storytelling, which in itself wouldn't be bad, but the whole contrivance of, they're stuck on the mountain, is leading up to what is basically a recreation of the death of Neil C. Roberts.
Before we sort of get into how the game depicts this, the reason, listener, that we bring up stuff like that they're using Bear 50s or the inaccuracies of the helicopter depiction and stuff like that is, so this is kind of the first war game that I'm familiar with anyway, that genuinely went out of its way to be like, no, this is realism.tm. That wasn't like a mod for Red Orchestra, right?
Because that's part of Medal of Honor's thing. It's supposed to be like authentic depictions of war. And
you know what? Yeah, it's a good time to bring up. So this kind of gets to a core problem with this game. And I'm not going to go on a long ramble. It's just to kind of preface this as we get into the codes of the game. It's the problem with this game is that one of the least interesting and least relevant things about this game is that it's a Medal of Honor game. It's not completely irrelevant, but it's mostly irrelevant, which to an extent is quite sad. It's sort of, we can sort of sparse it out, but it is something we should make note of, that Medal of Honor always traded on authenticity. And this game is just... It's not just inauthentic, but
it's almost better propaganda than some of the Blue Bloods is for the NYPD.
It essentially
you couldn't ask for.
It essentially does the kind of excessive dramatization of the content of the historical events that games depicting war are considered dismissed for. You're Hollywooding the events.
Yeah, it's literally it's just a portrait. It's a self-portrait done by the people who made it, right? There are no flourishes to this. There is nothing thrown into the canvas to make it pop, to make it stand out. None of that. It is just... You know what? It is the most unforgivable thing. It is conventional. Ooh, got all pretentious.
But it's not
even
there. Good conventional.
And it doesn't. It follows convention in all of the wrong ways.
I'd rather play a video game based on License to Kill. When our friend
that would actually
McLean,
not be a terrible game.
Our friend McLean, though, literally said while watching all of this, he'd rather play the Blackwater video game.
Oh God.
And
he
did say this. I bless him because holy shit.
Oh yeah, the Chinook bit where you have to leave the guys behind is another turret section.
Oh God,
using M240. But after that, it cuts back to Bagram with Colonel Drucker and General Mick whatever the fuck being like,
Jeb Bush.
Jeb Bush. Colonel Drucker and Jeb Bush are there, like, oh, we gotta rescue our boys. The other Delta Force are too far away on a different mountain and can't help. While the general, in what is kind of a total, like, diversion of what his thing was about being, like, action, go, 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 is like, oh, we can't commit forces to rescue the SEALs. Oh, presumably because the Rangers that he had sent in got their schnuts kicked in. So now he's all gun-shy about it. And they're just like, oh, we could send in a Predator and AC-130, even though at dawn they weren't using air support during the day. The colonel and the general are arguing, and then one of the colonel's guys just, like, cuts the connection to the general guy. And then Drucker sends in the Ranger QRF to rescue them. And this is
we need to point this out. It is basically one of the few moments the game does a genuine attempt at humor. It's basically just the blandest Michael Bay,
the general is like,
joke.
Hey, Colonel, you gotta listen to me, and then just cuts off. And the
guy who does that, because he's some techie working there, goes, oh, it seems you've lost connection, sir.
Oh, technical difficulties.
Again, a thing Call of Duty did better. Like...
So the insurgent happens.
Anyway.
It's basically the... So you know how there was a helicopter Chinook crash in the real events? Well, the reason they do it in Medal of Honor 2010 is, despite being told to return to base, Mother and Rabbit convince the Chinook pilot to turn around so they can go back in to get, Voodoo and Preacher from the mountain. This results in them getting the Chinook shot down and Rabbit getting slightly injured because he had to jump out the back.
He dislocates his arm.
His leg.
And then, through stabbing a question mark, probably a Chechen, at least he thought it was, he absorbs that man's life essence and and fixes his arm and leg.
Yes, you get the whole scripted, oh, you're limping sequence, stab a guy, get his gun, then move perfectly fine until the end of the level where, after meeting up with Mother again and fighting a bunch of other Chechno-Talibani Qaidas. So this is where we get to the, perhaps, not mentioned in the news from what I saw, looking at articles at the time, but what I find personally to be the most tasteless choice of the game. Rabbit, your player character of the Navy SEALs, is basically becoming Neil C. Roberts, as in you're left behind on the mountain, you do a big fall. At the end of the mission where you jump off a cliff to avoid being captured, which is questionable, leading to you getting both more injured and captured anyway. And then, after they send in the QRF, the guy who got shot in the door gun gets shot in the door gun. You have a bit of a fighting as the Rangers. You go up to look for the, SEALs. You find a cave. You open the cave.
You find the two guys you went to rescue, and they were perfectly fine!
Yeah, Voodoo and Preacher
I was
are perfectly
tuning out
fine.
hard by this point, because, I know I watched all of this. I cannot fucking remember.
I want to point out another fun fact. So, because the game only lets you have, 4 other AI teammates when you're playing, 2 of your Ranger teammates, one guy gets shot trying to open up, a metal sheet to enter the cave, and gets brought back to the medics at the Chinook by one of the other guys. So it's just you and one other guy, and then you meet the two state SEALs, and they join your team for you to have 3 AI with you. So that's just a very
because these two SEALs would totally be following the lead of a black guy. They wouldn't be hurling racial slurs at him and the colonel all day long behind their backs at all.
I digress. So yeah, you go in, you go fight more people. You find a cave, and then you're like, oh, hey, Mother and Rabbit, you're alive. Once you find Mother and Rabbit, you cut back to Rabbit again in first person, but it's the whole shaky, injured cam. And you basically sit there, waiting for medical evac, until eventually, when the helicopter finally arrives, Rabbit dies. And so Voodoo and Mother are like, they grab the lucky rabbit's foot. That's why he's called Rabbit. See, he's got a rabbit's foot. And they're like, man... we gotta finish the fight, TM. Yeah. And then it cuts to Voodoo, I think, or some other fucker, meeting with some guy, informant guy, which is basically the teaser for the next game. And then roll credits.
Oh, hey, we completely forgot that throwaway line about Pakistan.
At one point, there's a throwaway line by one of the SEALs, I think.
Yeah,
about how they're going to find Bin Laden as they say he's probably in Pakistan, which leads to Sane's earlier mentioned conspiracy theory that it's entirely possible one of the
motherfuckers.
No. To be clear, this was my conspiracy theory because I'm the one that picked up the line. Basically, there's a throwaway line. Guy says they're musing on where Bin Laden might be because it's before they found him and all that, and he just goes, "Oh, he's probably in Pakistan." Now, given that we know for a fact it is on the record that they did speak to actual Tier 1 operators and all this shit, my personal conspiracy theory, and if you guys buy into it, that's great, but it is my conspiracy theory, is that some guy basically let slip in interviews with the game developers that, oh yeah, we know where Bin Laden is, more or less. Because we know they more or less had that figured out by
Navy
2010.
SEALs were training all of 2010 for their mission on
Yeah.
to go kill Bin
So
Laden.
it would not fucking surprise me in the least if, like, that's in there as a kind of in-joke amongst themselves.
Navy SEALs aren't.
I have
okay,
no proof for that, but that's what
I full-heartedly support it because Navy SEALs are not clever. You don't get to be a Navy SEAL because you're smart. You have to be a Navy SEAL because you don't know when to fucking quit, and you just don't drown when you're in training.
And you can also, like, ruck march, like, 300 miles without water.
You get selected for, like, you survive Ranger training because you know how to be smart. You get picked for Delta because you're smart. You get to be in the Green Berets because you can speak multiple languages and aren't a racist piece of shit.
You can sign up to join the SEALs. You could just ask.
Yeah, you sign
join.
up to join the SEALs. You get picked for Delta.
You also, other than the Medal of Honor, the best you can hope to get as a fucking reward is the Navy Cross.
You know, Delta Force is technically under the purview of the Army, because the Army has the third largest budget behind, like, the Air Force and the Navy.
So the main reason why I've recollected the official events and the plot is because, as I mentioned earlier, very similar, and so it makes the divergences for the sake of drama even more befuddling and apparent, especially because this game is only like 4 hours long. This game was sold for $60, and it's not even that long. The most value.
You killed about 500,000 Chechens at this point. All right, you've killed more Chechens.
They also, like, there is no coalition forces at all.
Yes, you may notice that despite the previous mention, there are no Americans. There are not even any Afghans involved in this game's version of Operation Anaconda. It is like tactically, surgically removing any non-American influence in the battle for
because, like I said,
reasons.
Because, like I said, this game is Navy SEAL fan fiction of what they thought the war was like. They probably collectively hallucinated while doing hardcore drugs the tank attack, even though they weren't in Bagram at the time.
Yeah.
Yes, I think
like, it's
like
hard
the
to...
reasons TM that you mentioned, May, are very obviously like just that. This is an advertisement for a few things. An advertisement for the Afghanistan war itself. It's obviously an advertisement for the Navy SEALs. I think also this is when Medal of Honor as a brand, like, we're all pretense of it being anything but basically your dad's war game.
You know how Call of Duty was considered military propaganda after a point?
Here's the thing. Call of Duty is military propaganda.
It is.
It's very pernicious military propaganda, but it's also fun.
Yeah, but had to grow into being the propaganda it was considered. Well, this is like exactly what the worst detractors of Call of Duty consider Call of Duty to be.
Just go give the dog a treat.
In game form. The dog is mad because my brother won't let him in the room for some fucking reason. I can't stop the barking. We're just
give him belly rubs.
No, see, if I let him in the room, he'll just bark at the cat. So everyone, what do you think the ideology, TM, is of the game?
The ideology is Navy SEALs are the best fighting force in the world. They're not, objectively. Taliban hates women, which, as Iona said, is this oversimplification. America did nothing wrong. In fact, all those war crimes were committed by secret Chechens that never existed. This game was specifically designed to turn me into an alcoholic.
Oh, so like the real US military.
Our fucking series was founded on the idea that Call of Duty wasn't that realistic. I never thought I'd like...
For you,
unrelated debate.
But I never thought I'd say, holy shit, Call of Duty at least acknowledges that, yeah, we've done some war crimes. Yeah,
I mentioned...
this game makes Modern Warfare 2 look downright respectable. And, okay, Modern Warfare 2 stands, don't beat me to death. Modern Warfare 2, a lot of fun. But it's objectively stupid as shit.
Let's just say don't fucking expect us to suck the cock of Call of Duty, right? But I did say, I feel I have to say that in conversations when we were talking about this game, it really did kind of put into perspective, like, not even that there's anything clever about Call of Duty at this time, but like, it is in its own specific way well designed, and it has an eye for bombast and for theatrics, right?
Modern Warfare 2.
This game doesn't even like attempt, or like, there's nothing enjoyable about it, because at the end of the day, it's still a game.
I will say this for Modern Warfare 2, much like when we eventually get to it, we will talk about Tom Clancy's sort of universe. at least Modern Warfare 2 gives you a comically evil but reasonable premise to set why is Ramirez securing Burger Town.
Yes.
You
I would
know-
not invoke the name of the podcast so flippantly, but yes, essentially.
But like Call of Duty, like I said, this game is just like it doesn't even give a pretext because it bills itself as like, yeah, this actually all happened. No, a lot of it just
This game
kind
wants
of did-
the status of Call of Duty, but like the respectability of like 6 Days in Fallujah.
Ugh. That was being developed around the same time until,
I
it got
Hey,
put in
what
the
do you mean?
hyperbolic
It's still
time
being
chamber.
developed.
Yeah,
Haha.
Before development stopped and then restarted because God, was that a 2020 thing or a 2019 thing?
I have
I
no
just-
idea. I know nothing about 6
After
Days
fucking
in Fallujah.
6 Days in Fallujah got put in the hyperbolic time chamber. Before then, it was contemporary
So-
with this.
Should we talk about at the time what was controversial about it? Because okay,
Well, I brought up
so
the
this
Taliban
game
thing
actually
a few times.
did better than we're giving it, I think, credit for. I
It,
think
debu-
it'd be
it
the best
debuted
way
as
to
number 1 selling in the UK charts in October.
Yeah. So this game was not a flop, is what we're trying to say, and it was not
It
a
should have
huge
been.
success either. It was good enough to warrant a sequel.
all the
Um,
assets for like guns and people and stuff were pulled over from like Bad Company 2.
Pretty much, yeah.
Like,
And,
We have
one of
no
the
proof of
Rangers-
this, but
No, I mean
based
one of
on-
the Rangers I looked at him when he wasn't being super albino, literally just looked like the character model from Marlowe.
For the record, Bad Company 2 was released was it the same year?
No, Bad Company 2 is 2009, so a year before.
Contemporary with Modern Warfare 2. But this game, just all the guns looked like they were right out of Bad Company 2.
Yeah, it
as
is
well.
like, even though the campaign was done on Unreal 3 and I've only seen campaign gameplay, it is amazing how much it does just look like an
I need
alpha
to point out how
Battlefield
both
3.
of you are incorrect. Bad Company 2
Oh.
came out March 2nd, 2010, which is
Holy
fucking
shit.
hilarious because it came out on the anniversary of Operation Anaconda in the same year where this game, based off
While
Operation
having nothing
Anaconda,
to do
came
with
out.
Operation Anaconda
Yep.
and being a better game.
2010, baby!
I think
2010 was
honestly,
a
I'm
fucking...
gonna make the controversial take. Halo Reach was a more honest depiction of Operation Anaconda, and it didn't even
I
take place in
cannot
the same
wait
universe.
until we've done the Reach episodes so that you stop making...
Halo Reach Around.
Yes.
Uh,
so that you stop making Halo a Reach around. Yes.
Now, before
I'm
we
gonna
begin
enjoy
our
writing the
closing
script for
arguments,
that.
I need to... This game had a Linkin Park single tied to it. The Catalyst. It was both featured in the trailer released in August, and also is in the game's credits.
That is very 2010 energy. It also sounds like shit, to be honest.
I wasn't listening to it at the time.
I was. It sounds like shit. The controversy at the time was very much that you could play as the Taliban, and I think not obviously it wasn't released this way, but initially they were just called the Taliban.
Yes, a lot of military groups got upset about it. The game wasn't sold in army base.
The
stores.
British, I'm pretty sure the British Foreign Secretary or Home Secretary, something like that, like pretty much called it out in an interview and stuff like that. It was a whole thing.
I mean,
It
who
was-
the fuck are you
it
supposed
was-
to fight, though?
Just the point I was making. It was in the news at the time. I was 13 at this point, and I did not play Medal of Honor or Battlefield at this point, and I heard about this. Like, it was a thing people were speaking about at the time.
I don't remember this being an issue in America. But like, who the fuck are you supposed to fight in the war in Afghanistan? The Iraqis, fake Chechens, the Russians? Like,
Well,
What's
this ties into sort
It's-
of the biggest problem Medal of Honor 2010 had is that it was trying to stick to Medal of Honor's roots of being based off like authentically on real events. The problem being this isn't World War II, which was both a much less, at least in the popular culture, morally complex war by its perception, and also
I think
was
it's fair to
decades
say
in-
it just is a less morally complex war. I think you could just say that
Yeah.
and mean it.
And it was also
personally.
like decades out at that point. Well, this game came out while there were still troops fighting and dying in Afghanistan. Theirs was like, it was still in the news. This was a very like recent, like active thing. So it runs into the immediate problem of where the events it's depicting have to deal with the very real and ongoing like trauma, tragedy, and death in a way that some other military games in of its like say Call of Duty or Battlefield don't have to. Because Call of Duty, you notice, you invade a not Iraq for not actual
Yeah,
Iraq reasons.
they go to at times comical lengths to not name it a specific place, and
Bad Company
I say
has,
comical, but at the same time, like, people didn't really give a shit for it because they did a good job of not acknowledging it as being a real place.
Bad Company 1 and 2 have a weird plot, but you're basically fighting the Russians rather than in the Middle East.
Battlefield rightly just had you fight the Russians, and then in 3, like the Chinese.
Was
Call of
4.
Duty does the same
Arma 3
thing.
has you fighting on a Greek island rather than, actively depicting anything real in the Middle East. And also, the CSAT force in Arma 3 is not like... CSAT is mostly like China, Iran. Basically, everybody who isn't with the US, isn't with NATO, but isn't Russia, is the thing. So, even with the Russia thing getting old, the Russia thing still offered you a certain, disconnect from real events that makes it easier to swallow the whole pill of modern military conflict.
So
And
if we
again, the
disconnect
game
from-
apes to this with the whole Chechen shit and then doesn't do anything with it.
Yeah, it would have been more comical if you were fighting Chechen ninjas. There's a callback to a thing that happened in the Soviet-Afghan War, but it was Pakistani ninjas in the mountains of Afghanistan rather than just generic Taliban.wav.racism.
I will say it's, if you want, because this game does the subject matter of this game, ironically, would be more relevant now, I think, because people obviously there's no longer troops in Afghanistan. People are looking back, right? This, in and of itself, probably more relevant now to a general audience person who is not insane than at the time. This is just my personal note, if you want something that kind of depicts not the war directly, but its effects, and has one long scene anyway that depicts this, watch Punisher. Punisher does a good job.
The Netflix one?
The TV series with John Bernthal.
Yeah,
The Netflix one.
Netflix.
Yeah. Just if you want the kind of feel and mood of it, it doesn't really depict the war except for one episode. But
Medal
this
of Honor
game to me is
2010
like a
is
first
what
and
made
last.
Frank Castle become the Punisher.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, did we also off cameras Ramirez just getting drunk heavily because
Yes, there's one
he got
ranger.
sent to
There's one
Afghanistan.
ranger regiment that exists, and therefore all military games use the 76.
Yeah, the 75th. Yeah, that's
75th.
right.
even though there's
And we
a
worked
whole
out the timelines. There's a chance that Ramirez really is there.
Yeah, Ramirez and Frank Castle were smoking dope behind the latrains.
Oh yeah, for
Sam
sure.
Fisher was also there.
I think
Big Boss is just off screen what the hell happened to Afghanistan?
Well, not quite, but that's a whole other thing. You need to play more Metal Gear. But this game to me is like a first and last in many ways, right? So, first, it's probably the first game that tries to do the kind of authenticity thing. Again, that wasn't like a Red Orchestra mod. It's kind of the first game to what little credit it does get, to actually depict the War on Terror, kind of not as it was, but yes, this is a game, and this is the War on Terror, and you are a soldier in the war. You know what I mean? With no false names or anything like that.
Certainly one of
the
the
enemy force
biggest-
is called.
I can't think of
It's not the
aside
first.
Insurgency Sandstorm what other game has even touched the War on Terror as a serious
And even
subject.
Insurgency Sandstorm doesn't really. It just sort of more uses it
Most
as
things
set
that touch that either use non-specific events because of the current ongoing realities, or they're hardcore milsim types like Arma.
Yeah, or Insurgency is kind of a line between conventional military shooter and milsim.
On a Call of
But
Duty
yeah.
to Arma scale, it's in Rising Storm territory.
Oh God, we're recording this podcast
in
and
terms
just
of
hearing
setting,
that.
yeah, not in terms of to be clear, not in terms of gameplay, but
I-
in terms of setting and aim of the game, yes.
I want to take a time back machine or a time travel machine, go to 2010 and listen to just all the racism going on in the teams, the voice chat in this game, because it's gonna be hardcore. Oh my God, it's gonna be like Rising Storm 2 levels of just malice.
Yeah, these days you want that shit, the same kind of vibe of people. You play stuff like War Thunder. So that's sort of its firsts, because a lot of things that it passively or pathetically tries to hint at have since been done by other better games, or will probably be, because the cultural zeitgeist has moved on. Afghanistan is more acceptable to talk about. I feel like that's true. I feel like you can do that now in a way you couldn't in 2010. In terms of lasts, it's kind of, even though it's not the last game in the series, or even the last one to come out.
It was the
recently,
second to
'cause it was
last
the
game
VR
in
one.
the series before they made that VR title that went back to World War
Yeah,
II.
it's kind of the tombstone of the Medal of Honor series. Should we kind of just do a quick rundown of Medal of Honor, and not rundown of the series, sorry, just sort of rundown of what this game meant for the series specifically. And also, we should talk about the multiplayer connection and the
It
Battlefield
meant
3
that
stuff.
basically EA was I assume, trying to do a Call of Duty, where with Call of Duty you have make Treyarch, Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer eventually, cycling through who makes the games for the yearly releases.
Yeah, you give enough time for each one to make like a full-length game while still having yearly
The idea
releases.
here might have been to try and do that, but alternating between Medal of Honor and Battlefield. But the problem there is that doesn't really work, especially because these are like the same kind of modern setting. So Medal of Honor was basically cannibalized by Battlefield, which was a lot more established and popular and better.
Yeah, and like Bad Company 2 in
thing.
particular, like we'll go into how we know this, but like was not just popular, it was arguably more popular than they were expecting, even, I would say.
You have all of the fuckers that bought Bad Company 2 in March. How many of them do you think are going to play a slightly tweaked version of the multiplayer for another $60 in October? When, if anything,
Yeah.
they'd just buy the game because they got access to the Battlefield 3 beta.
Battlefield, okay, like the Battlefield campaigns after Bad Company, like Battlefield 3 was just a
The
bad
multiplayer
Black Ops.
beta, hun.
Yeah, no,
Oh.
we're specifically speaking about multiplayer here.
I mean, I remember playing Bad Company or Battlefield 3's multiplayer. It was really good.
oh
But
yeah,
when you're paying for the alpha edition of the multiplayer for $60,
Yeah.
fuck that shit.
like and honestly, like we'll get into it when we eventually cover Battlefield 3. Battlefield 3 was my first Battlefield. I then went back and played Bad Company 2, but my first experience Battlefield was 3's multiplayer. And let me tell you, it was great. Like, I loved it. But looking back, even that was somewhat incomplete because essentially, I think one of the developers literally verbatim said, like, the problem with Battlefield 3 is it will always be 6 months behind where it needs to be. It was released 6 months too early. All the updates were always 6 months too late, etc., etc. But say what you want, solid concept, right? That's why Battlefield 4 exists, to sort of like iron out the kinks that Battlefield 3 had. And it's built basically off the back of the multiplayer for this game.
Yes, because the
Yeah.
The initial
multiplayer
parts
was
of it.
literally outsourced to DICE because Medal of Honor could never quite grasp multiplayer in the same way that Call of Duty and Battlefield later would. It was very much a 90s sort
And
of
like,
single
if
player
you're a
thing.
DICE game developer, right, who has been tasked to do this shit, when you've just come off the back of Bad Company 2, which is extremely successful, right? And then you are about to make Battlefield 3, where you're going to kind of go into the modern war stuff without the kind of without the campaign that you had with Bad Company 2. You're going to do a multiplayer game, right? That's the aim. You're going to really expand that. And they tell you, oh no, you've got to do multiplayer for Medal of Honor game. A different series that like you have not previously worked on. What do you think you're going to do? Do you think you're going to be nice and like try and make it the best you are? No,
You're
going to
port
use
over
it
as much
job
assets
training.
as you can.
Yeah, you're going to use it as job training. You're going to figure out, like, okay, well, here's what works and what doesn't. You're probably not even... I doubt they even thought people would play it. I think they probably looked at it as a kind of programming thing. Like, okay, let's figure out how to, like, make this easier to do.
Get the
and
third
stuff.
tier guys who aren't working on Battlefield 3, updating Battlefield Bad Company 2, or working on the DLC content for Bad Company 2. Because, again, Bad Company 2 came out that very year, a few
Yeah.
months
So
before.
here's the thing. Iona, having watched May play 2010 and having yourself experienced Bad Company 2, the unaired episode, which is deep in the podcasting vault, which would you rather have them done a sequel for?
Well, first of all, thank you, Sane, for, like, just making sure there's no fucking mystery on the podcast.
Eh.
Which one would I prefer a sequel to, you're saying?
Yeah. Which one would you pay for if you could? If you had like infinite money, which one would you go to, EA and say, I will pay for the development costs for a sequel that's actually like...
The 3 got a sequel, that's what 4 is.
No, Bad Company.
Not Battlefield, Bad Company specifically. People still
Bad
want a
Company
sequel
2.
to that.
No, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing sequels to that. I'm not a huge fan of Bad Company 2,
But, like,
but
you
like having played it,
understand-
yeah, it's, be cool to see where that went.
You understand like why I was like, you gotta play it, like, because it's just a wild game.
Okay,
We
again,
will...
it's not a Bad Company 2 review, but yes, like, I would pick Bad Company 2 as my answer.
Well, we're hitting the 2-hour 40-minute mark. What?
Oh,
let's just
God.
let's say our final things and then goodbyes, everybody.
It's annoying because there's still a lot more I sort of wanted to talk about.
Don't
we
worry.
can release this as a two-parter.
No.
No, we're not doing a fucking 2. Trust me, the amount of
There will,
this
there
will
will
not
be a
2
time
parts.
to talk about it. That's all. So anyway, I've been May. I have said all. of my
Oh,
things.
okay. We're
We're not doing the
that.
full outro, but leading us into it. I've been May. I have no unstated opinions about it. What about you two? Any final words?
Well, first of all, can I just say thank you, May, for doing like all the research.
Yeah.
You set the bar fucking high. I'm not even saying this is a meme. I really do mean it. Like fucking hell, my first episode is going to be stressful.
This is the power of weaponized autism, everybody.
God.
Weaponized autism, indeed. God. I guess I could talk forever about it, but yeah, it only reaffirms my feeling that I just wouldn't really be into Medal of Honor games. I'll just do my quick ideology ramble. So, this is the boomer 90s Medal of Honor series, that sort of perspective of like, look at the world we've tried to save, right, with the World War II games. Ironed out, a bit old, a bit haggard, constantly chasing itself, trying to capture like the magic of basically the first Medal of Honor game. And never quite doing it. All the while, Battlefield comes into its own and figures itself out as primarily a multiplayer first game. Like, look, I know people like the campaigns, right? I love Battlefield. There's basically no campaigns I like. It's a fucking multiplayer game, right? That's why people buy them. I will die on this hill. And all the while, Call of Duty does what Medal of Honor does, but better, pretty much. Like, you could get into the weeds of it, and we will. But that is basically what happened. This game is just like the first clear sign of that. And honestly, the most impressive thing about it to me is that it even got a sequel at all.
Lemming can take my place for that sequel episode. I'm not going through another one.
Despite the game being bad and creatively bankrupt, the game did in fact sell fairly well enough. You know, it wasn't until Warfighter that things took a critical and probably financial tank.
And in fairness, this, like, people, I do remember people at the time saying that critically it was not all that anyway. So, yeah, it's not worth buying, it's not worth playing. Not because we hate it or whatever, although, to be honest, I kind of do, just because I had to fucking sit through this, watching the thing, but it's not worth your time. It's really not. It's... Graphically, yeah, it's not worth your time. It's very bad, like, even for 2010. That's basically my thoughts, yeah, I can't think of anything else to add.
Hi, I'm Sane. This is my closing statement.
Pronouns. You weren't here for the pronouns.
Oh, I'm he,
Do
him.
your fucking pronouns.
I'm he, him, even though
one of the token cis let out of the dungeon.
Our token's straight.
Even though my PFP is of anime boobs.
It is funny how we're both trans and yet you, the straight one, are the most anime. That is pretty fun.
My final thoughts. I don't even know. Like, this game, watching it broke my brain. It made me realize how much I should appreciate Call of Duty from like an artistic and storytelling perspective. And that's never a sentence I thought I'd utter.
Alright, everybody, this has been Why is Ramirez Securing the Burger Town with your hosts,
Sane,
Iona Oxide,
and May. And we'll see you eventually.